Hi, and welcome to this live reading from When Magic Calls, a collection of modern fairy tales by Caitlin Berve, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Letters from a Woo. Dearest Mr. Wang Yong, babies aren't meant to remember their births, but I do. I was born in a place where the elderly go to die. It was a sterile place, but not a cold one. Thanks to the last wisps of life in Grandma Chi and residents like you and your wife, I need your help again, Mr. Wang. I have a decision to make by the end of this Hungry Ghost Month, one that will affect us all. Whenever I think of doing what Mama has asked, I can't breathe in the same way I couldn't breathe when I was born. On my birthday, nearly 18 years ago, I swam in Mama's womb, enjoying the sweet cadence of the ancient Chinese lullabies she sang. The subtle beeps and whirls of Grandma Chi's medical equipment in the hospice room acted as drum beats to her melody. I felt Mama's delicate caress press through the barrier of skin and fluid, yet even as an unborn babe, I knew I was receiving the excess love she felt for Grandma Chi, not affection for me. Then my world contorted. Mama's womb rejected me and squeezed until I thought I was going to pop. Poking her belly with more force than any loving mother would use, Mama hissed at me to stop. I felt her rise and heard the rush of liquid falling. She continued to ignore me as the walls around me collapsed in contractions. I needed her help to get out, to survive, but she refused. Mama screamed at me, "I won't have you!" "Zhang Min, you do not deny your daughter," Grandma Chi said in a strong voice devoid of her usual shaky tone. "You know she isn't mine," Mama said. My world shifted horizontally, and Mama grunted as Grandma Chi pulled us onto her bed in the cramped room and forced Mama to lie back. "I don't have the charms here," Mama said. "You know what she is. She's not mine." Mama was right. Just as I remember my birth, I remember my conception. Not a memory exactly. I imagine the shadow man and woman sneaking into Mama's room one night when Papa was away for work. The moon was barely a sliver, the breeze a hushed whisper. With an ancient guttural spell and a twist of an ancient dagger, they took a palm-sized infant girl from Mama's belly and plopped me in her place from the ether of Yushan, the changeling realm, not bothering to impregnate the shadow woman, my almost mother, the natural way. A sharp ache of rejection settles in my chest when I think of how even my own kind didn't want me. Mama's mortal blood was so much stronger than mine when her umbilical cord connected to my belly. It seared inside me as both a nourishment and a poison. The way drugs or alcohol both sustain and kill an addict, her blood fueled my body and devoured my life force. A similar pain echoed back at me as the shadow man used the dagger to slice into the shadow woman's stomach. The real little girl sank into that dark womb, and her blood mingled with that of a changeling, fusing with their dark magic, but she was wanted, so her life force wasn't destroyed. As they slipped into the night and back to Yushan, her pain quieted, then subsided, especially after her birth. Mine has not. Mama gave in to the need to push, but refused to cry out. She didn't want Grandma Chi's caretakers to interfere, but they came anyway. Voices shouted commands to push, get more towels, and move Grandma Chi to her chair. "I will not miss meeting my granddaughter," Grandma Chi insisted, and her spirit drew closer to mine. The wall squeezed tighter and tighter, propelling me forward. The shock of cold, dry air made me want to cry, but I couldn't. The pressure around me was gone, and I felt exposed yet free as Grandma Chi caught my small body and handed me to Mama. Blinding, unforgiving brightness light pressed around my body. I wanted to stay in that light, but I had no breath. Fingers made of spirit encircled my throat, calling me to my ancestors and their dark spells. "She's not crying," Grandma Chi's favorite nurse Yan announced. Without the gift of breath, I only had a fraction of a moment in the mortal realm, but Grandma Chi would have none of that. She slipped from her body and pried the ghostly hands off of me. Although she only had a few days left, she gave me what remained of her life, and with her final breath, named me. "Zhang Li," she uttered. Beauty. Something large still pressed against my chest, yet I could breathe. I cried for Mama, but she ignored me and dropped me onto the bed as she scrambled for Grandma Chi. "Mama! Mama!" My own Mama half fell, half scampered out of bed and over to Grandma Chi, trailing blood and other fluids along the way. "Get the breathing machines! Shock her back!" she demanded the medical staff. "Zhang Min," Nurse Yan admonished Mama while swooping me from the bed with strong calloused hands that smelled of fresh soil and flowers. You know she has a DNR order. She was ready to pass. Now you must look after your daughter. No! Mama slipped and sat on the floor, shaking Grandma Chi, begging her to come back. When Mama continued to ignore me, Nurse Jan pulled me closer and strode out of the room, whispering for me to hold on. Crying was difficult. Grandma Chi hadn't had much energy to begin with, and I'd spent a lot of it trying to get Mama's attention. Still wailing like a vengeful spirit, Mama didn't follow us. In a space filled with people robbed of vitality by their emerging deaths, Mama's hearty screams grated. You are no beauty, no Lee. You killed my Mama. She suppressed a sob. You are Zhang Wu. Her words trailed after me. And so I was given my second name, Evil Sorceress. Did anyone ever call you names, Mr. Wang? I suppose everyone gets called something nasty from time to time, but was it by someone you loved and who was supposed to love you? Were they right about you like Mama was right about me? I do have abilities, and I've been asked to use them again by Mama, the Shadow Woman, and Mama's real daughter. That's why I'm writing. The real Lee has been contacting Mama through water in our polished silver bowl. Water is known for being a looking glass, silver for its magical properties. Through their combined reflective surfaces, the real Lee and Mama can converse. She's told Mama about her changeling family, how they needed an infusion of human blood to stabilize their community in Yushan, how they took care of her right from the start. Despite belonging to the Dark Fae, it seems she was born into a loving family, so why does she want to come here after almost 18 years? The heavy weight Grandma Chi lifted from my chest comes back when Mama reminds me she wants her real daughter back. She wants me to make it happen, but the balance must be kept. Someone will have to take this real daughter's place in Yushan. Mama wants that to be me. Technically, I was supposed to be born there, but it doesn't feel like home. Ever haunted, Zhang Li. P.S. Today is the first day of the Hungry Ghost Month. Mama says I can't burn paper spirit money and gifts for you and most of the others because we aren't blood relatives, but I don't believe her. She doesn't know about your ancestral shrine in the corner of the cemetery. I believe you and the others are my ancestors. Papa agrees with me, so he bought the most beautiful sheets of crisp origami paper for me to fold into your spirit gifts. He slipped them to me with a wink and told me to tell you hello. To honor you and ensure you have the wealthy afterlife you all deserve, I'll send paper money and folded goods every day of this Hungry Ghost Month through ritual fire with my letters. This time I've brought paper spirit money and folded lots of different kinds of flowers you can use to decorate for the festivities. Dearest Mr. Wang Mian, it doesn't have to be me. We could trade someone else for the real Lee, but it would take more energy, more effort, more magic. We've already switched places once, so we created a pathway through the human realm and the changeling one just for us. A new pathway would need to be forged to swap the real Lee with someone else. Mama even suggested using a baby from the orphanage, but I don't want anyone else to start life the way I did. Breathing was so hard those first few hours. The tightness in my chest made each breath a struggle, like my ribs were laced too tight. Nurse Jan rushed me to the hospital across the street from the hospice center, where I was cleaned and laid in a covered bed. Even with the help of the incubator filled with oxygen, breathing was a battle, so I didn't cry anymore. I didn't have the strength or energy to focus on anything other than moving air in and out. A new nurse with softer hands made for holding delicate lives placed stickers on my chest with wires attached to beeping screens outside my coffin-like glass box. I felt her fretting at presence every time she came to check on me. Nurse Wen Ling's worry was as poor a substitute for the love of a parent, but I was grateful for it. I needed someone to care and hope I won my fight for life. Other glass boxes arranged in a neat grid surrounded me, all but a handful were empty. I didn't sense the same lack of life force in the other babies. They had simply been born too early. Whether they lived or died would be determined by their desires and wills. Although they occasionally squirmed and fussed, the room was silent and bright and smelled of powder, disinfectant, and electric heating pads. When Papa arrived, so did my breath. For the first time, I felt love. A warm sensation deeper than the heated mattress beneath me tingled throughout my chest, loosening my muscles and ribs. Finally, I could breathe, so I fussed. Then I cried until Papa lifted my tiny body in his strong hands. Ni hao, hello, he said as he held me. Hush now. Your mother has arrived. As soon as she's settled, we will go over so she can feed you. How does that sound, beautiful girl?" I cooed as he spoke. Even then, Papa had lines around his eyes from the way his skin crinkled when he smiled or laughed, and a gentle charm nestled in his voice. Soon, Mama arrived from the hospice center next door, and I was wheeled to her room a few doors down from the baby ward. Nurse Wen-Ling parked me in a space beside Mama's bed, just the right size for my glass box. Even as a day-old baby, I yearned for love and knew Mama was withholding it from me. "I will not support that creature. She killed my Mama." Mama leaned away from me in her own bed. She was boxed in by railings like me, but her bed didn't have glass sides. Flicking her matted, damp hair, she looked at Papa with deep brown eyes rimmed with exhaustion half circles. Her rejection sliced something deep inside me, shaking loose a piece of myself that should have remained locked away, a piece that retained access to my dark changeling roots. "Are you insane? Your newborn daughter can't possibly have killed your mother," said Papa. The line smoothed from his eyes. "She had been dying for 2 years. She's only been bad since that creature invaded me." Mama pointed at me and scrunched her small nose in disgust. I couldn't hold in the hurt. Despite not having much energy left, I wailed. "If you let our baby die, you'll never be welcome in my house again." Papa's hands clenched into tight fists before he forced them to relax and patted my incubator. "That creature is not our baby." Papa nodded to the fretful Nurse Wen-Ling standing in the doorway. She quickly unlocked the wheels on my enclosed bed and rolled me back to the baby ward with Papa on her heels. "Where are you going?" Mama whined through the open doorway. "I'll be taking care of our daughter until you come to your senses," Papa yelled before storming up to me. Anger wafted off him like steam, but when he lifted me from the heating pad, his hands were so gentle and sturdy I knew I could trust him and stopped crying. Papa nestled me to his chest while holding to my lips a bottle Nurse Wen-Ling had prepared. I needed food to gather more energy to keep breathing, but the fake nipple was too big, too rubbery, and too difficult to suckle. I only managed to swallow a few drops, so Nurse Wen-Ling inserted a tube into my nose and down to my tiny stomach. I hated the way that tube burned in my throat. The nurses had to keep socks on my hands so I wouldn't scratch my face trying to get it out. They gave me small amounts of formula at first to make sure my stomach could tolerate synthetic food, and quickly learned I was allergic to the regular formula. Dairy allergies are common in Mama's side of the family. For 3 days after I was born, Papa tried to feed me and did his best to convince Mama to nurse me. He didn't know she was waiting me out, knowing Grandma Chi had only given me the few days she had left. My borrowed time was running out. Have you ever had to fight for your life with people rooting for you to fail, Mr. Wang? How did you push through? People are rooting for me to fail again, people who should be hoping I succeed but have poison in their hearts. Grief can poison hearts, don't you think? Jealousy, too. That's what I felt when I reached for the real Li today. Overwhelming jealousy. Ever fighting, Zhang Li. This time I've folded paper shirts, skirts, and pants in various shades and sizes. I've been practicing, so they should hold up better than last year's. I brought different currencies to burn for you too, in case you want to visit a foreign market. Dearest Mr. Wang Yang, I won't do it. I'm more human than changeling now. I won't take the other Li's place in Yushan. Mama won't be happy, but I think the other Li knows and never really expected me to swap places. After burning the last letter, I felt your wife's special sparkle in my strong heartbeat and realized I'm a real Li too, despite Mama's insistence otherwise. Your sweet Wang Jings were the second pair of hands I felt safe and loved in. The two of you arrived in what could have easily been my final hour. Thank you, Mr. Wang, for standing vigil beside the hospital entrance, waiting to run into Papa and begging to bring your wife to meet me. Don't worry, Mr. Zhang. Your daughter has the will to make it through this. I recognized your voice as Papa guided you to my would-be glass coffin. There were even more babies in the ward, but the three of you only had eyes for me. I've not felt that special since. Oh, yes, Jing whispered from the wheelchair. I'm sure Papa insisted on pushing himself. And she's no Wu. The rush of oxygen from the tube in her nose followed each of her sentences. I liked that sound. It meant someone else knew how to fight for breath and succeed. Her eyes were right at my level. Even though I was a newborn, I was aware of their special sparkle, of the inner joy shining through. She was the kind of woman I've wished Mama was. She won't be able to fight for much longer if she won't eat, Papa said, and scooped me up. Give her here. Sometimes all a babe needs is a woman's touch. Jing opened her arms to me and held me close. Her heart beat against my body, slow at first, then faster. Now, let's have that bottle. Her arms were looser than Papa's, but her grip was firm. Pinch it first, Yang. You smiled, a proud, sad smile, and then I knew. You and Jing weren't there for a visit. You were my fairy godparents, there to bless me with more life. Sometimes the little ones need you to work the tip first. You showed Papa how to massage the top of the bottle so the nipple wasn't so stiff and difficult to eat from. Then you handed my food to Jing, and we had our own conversation while you chatted with Papa. I remember a slight tremor in your hands. Sweet little girl, you know why I'm here, don't you? I did, and she knew it. How many do you have? Asked Papa as I gorged on the formula. 3 of our own and 7 grandchildren, you said, glancing at me with love and sadness swimming in your eyes. Both you and Papa remained standing beside us in the space too cramped for 2 full-grown men and a woman in a wheelchair beside the enclosed beds. Don't forget the great-grandbaby, Jing said before encouraging me to swallow. There you go. You must learn to eat now so I can give you more time. I fussed, afraid. I didn't want to siphon my life from others and become known as a monster. The grandbaby's not here yet, you patted Jing's shoulder, but my wife has taught plenty of babes. She has a gift for guiding the ones like your sweet Lee through the early days. Lee? Papa leaned forward so I could see him over the bottle. I wanted to smile back, but didn't quite know how. That's a much better name for my beautiful girl. It's the one her grandmother gave her. We were sorry to see Chi go. Jing pulled the bottle away from my lips. This formula smells funny. She licked the tip. Soy? Papa nodded. She's allergic to some protein in the regular formula. By now, the formula was halfway gone. You must drink it all, Jing urged me. See, she's a fighter. You pointed to me, and for a moment, the warmth of your faith and pride in my survival made breathing and eating a tiny bit easier. So's your wife. I'm surprised I didn't sense Mama earlier, so I don't know when she arrived in the baby ward. She openly glared at me before turning to Papa. She's not ours. Let's go home. Papa's cheeks reddened and he hissed. I'll go home when Zhang Li is given the okay by her doctors. You'll go home when you pass a psychiatric evaluation and accept our little girl, Min. Mama flinched. She pulled her hair back into a messy bun that somehow made her look wilder than when it was down. Short, even for an Asian woman. She filled the space around her with a fiery will, determined to take Papa home and mourn both her mother and real daughter. After knowing Jing was ready to die for me, the force behind Mama's rejection cut deeper. I wiggled until the bottle was no longer in my mouth, pulled in as much air as I could, and screamed. Look what you've done, Papa spat. Go back to your room. He turned his back on Mama, half reaching for me, but Jing pulled me closer, making shushing noises. Drink. She'll come around. I'm here now, so is Yang, so is your Papa. I focused on her and settled enough to eat a bit more. Mama stood in the doorway, blasting me with the searing heat of her hate, watching me for a moment before slipping away so she missed Jing's gift. When I finished the bottle, she squeezed Jing's hand and kissed her cheek. Papa saw a loving husband caring for his wife. I saw a goodbye. The doctors say I have a few weeks left. 21 or so more days of excruciating pain as this cancer eats away at my body. Let's pray for even more. Jing kissed my forehead. I started crying before her fluttering heartbeat stopped pulsing against my body and began beating within it. You were ready, Mr. Wei. As soon as Jing slipped forward, you pulled me from her arms and called for the nurse. Your tears were real. So were your cries for help. I guess knowing someone is about to die doesn't make the loss easier. I should have learned that from Mama and Grandma Chi. The next few moments are a blur. I remember Papa lifting Jing out of the wheelchair and carrying her to a gurney. I remember shouting in numbers and the echoing crack of broken ribs as the medical staff began CPR on Jing's frail body. Then you seemed to wake up. You passed me to Papa and rushed forward, shouting Jing had a do not resuscitate order. She was ready to pass and was happy to do so in a place where people go to live. surrounded by the potential of new lives and energies akin to the sparkle in her eyes. Thank Jing again for me, please, Mr. Wang. Tell her that when I need to fight the temptation of the dark piece of myself Mama cut loose, I press my hand to my chest to feel her heartbeat. Tell her she gave me more than weeks. She gave me the tiniest piece of her sparkle, so I know how to live. I won't give up my place here. I won't sacrifice an infant either. If the other Lee wants to return to this realm, she'll have to find a willing sacrifice like I did. Have you ever been unwanted, Mr. Wang? Have you ever been a placeholder? I often wonder why you gave such a large donation to someone who was never supposed to be. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad to be alive and will keep that life. I just feel like each time I get a scholarship, win an award, score a point, or am in any way successful, I'm taking a place that was meant for someone else. I hope you feel differently. Ever grateful, Zhang Li. P.S. Tonight I've folded the most detailed formal wear I can manage with the gold and silver pattern paper. I included both modern suits and dresses and traditional pieces, so you can wear what you like best to celebrate this Hungry Ghost Month.